If we were to get a new series of Firefly, probably the greatest sci-fi show ever made, what are the biggest questions left unanswered from the series? Welcome to the Tapcam Pulse podcast, your place for sci-fi news, rumour, and of course debate.
Our tachyon pulse has been unable to completely penetrate the anomaly.
In this video, I am going to ignore beta canon, because obviously there's been comics, there's been novels based on Firefly that answer some of these questions. But if a new series were to be made, those would be ignored. And we really would have only the original series, what happened on screen, to base that series on, and to perhaps follow up some of these questions. So, what are the biggest questions left unanswered by Firefly? There are many. And what are those questions I want to see answered? The main question, the first question for me, did they? Inara and Mal obviously fancied the pants off each other. That was not hidden in the series, except maybe from each other. Well, Inara was a little bit more keen in some episodes and wooed, and Mal was kind of oblivious to that. But they definitely had serious chemistry. Would they ever have gotten together? Even by the end of the movie, we didn't get an answer to that. We saw Kaylee and Simon get together, but we never got to see the answer to this question. They had a non-romance that really was core to a lot of what was happening in the series. Would they have married? Would they have children? How would Mal deal with her work life? These are questions I would have loved to have seen answered. And if the series comes back with Nathan Fillion and they can get Morena Baccarin as well, we could see an answer. Was Zoe pregnant? Now, this is something that has appeared in a lot of the comics and things following on from Firefly. That, in fact, yes, when Wash died, when he was a leaf on the wind, and then that actually Zoe was pregnant and had Wash's child. Now, that would be a very good way of getting a next generation of the Serenity crew, actually having Zoe and Wash's kid as part of that crew. They could have it pretty much in timeline now. The child would be 20-something. So, could be a new crew member. I've always said that if they get to do this, it would be a mini-series with Nathan Fillion, etc., but it would go on to a Firefly The Next Generation eventually. That child, who I hope is Ginger, would obviously be core to that for me. The history of two of the biggest characters in the series, Inara and Shepherd Book, was never explained. But both of them have some sort of dark history that put them aboard the Firefly. Now, Ron Glass did sadly pass away a few years ago now, so he will not be returning to this iconic character. But there is a history there that could be explained another way, even if it's just through the story. Even without Shepherd Book in it directly, that does explain it. We know that he had some sort of connection to the Alliance. We know that he was maybe an operative or something like that. He knew an awful lot about the criminals within the solar system, and he seemed to have some very serious skills when it came to firearms and even hand-to-hand combat. So, what was that history? What drove him to become a man of the cloth? And why did he end up on the Serenity? Inara has a similar sort of past that we don't know why she was there. She was a registered companion. This seemed to be a very important role within society. So why was she on this rust bucket? There must have been something in her history that forced her to leave the comforts of the Alliance inner planets and to go out into the outer planets. Were there some sort of shame in her past? Did she do something to a client, maybe? Maybe a little, flick of a knife and you've no longer got a todger. Maybe it was something like that that forced her into, as I say, the outer planets and aboard the Serenity. I would have loved to know what that was, and obviously if Morena Baccarin can return, maybe in a relationship with Mal, we can hope, then yeah, I'd love to see and find out what that history was. Mal and Inara getting together is a relationship I desperately want to see, even more than O'Neill and Carter. I think I want to see that more. How did Wash and Zoe get together in the first place? We know from Out of Gas that actually they weren't initially going to get on. He had the little ginger moustache. Nobody liked that. And Zoe didn't like him. She said, he gets on my nerves. I don't like him. I don't know what it is. He unnerves me. The moustache alone should have been enough. And he was acting weird. He wasn't acting like Wash in that episode when we first see him sort of going, yeah, I might take this job. It looks like good to me. He's put in a weird voice and stuff. And I think he's maybe sort of playing up to his new employers. But Zoe didn't like him. So I would love to know, via a flashback or Zoe telling a story, maybe he tells a story to her son or daughter. How did that happen? How I Fell in Love with Your Father would be a really good little flashback episode. Again, I think this has been done in beta canon, but unless it's on screen, it don't count. By the end of the movie Serenity, the Alliance was clearly punched in the dick by what Mal and the team released openly to everybody. After the events of Serenity and the story of Miranda was released to the public, I do wonder how the Alliance would have reacted to that. Would they have tried to hunt down the Serenity? And would they have tried to hunt down Mal, etc.? I do wonder if that's an interesting way to restart and actually get a reboot of this project and actually find Mal, a broken man, desperately just trying to survive in a galaxy that want him dead. Or would the Alliance have even collapsed? It's a political organisation. And actually, that's another question. What actually is the Alliance? I'd like to know, is it a democracy? Is it something else? It doesn't really explain it in the series. I wouldn't mind a little bit more information about that. But they could actually give us that information by explaining how the Alliance, if it survived, did survive. Did they need to come down with an iron boot on the inner planets the way they did on the outer planets? What happened next following Serenity? And how this tyrannical government, it seems, actually reacted to the events and to what people found out about Miranda would be very, very interesting. And maybe that is the core story that this reboot could be based on. Hands of Blue come 2 by 2. What the hell were those dudes? Now, obviously we know from the episode where they go into the hospital and nick all the lovely drugs that these two dudes with blue gloves on turned up. They actually used that weapon, that little stick thing, and just nose and eyes and blah, and everyone died. But they acted weird. My point is they didn't act like the operative that we saw in Serenity. I'm not going to try and say that guy's name. He's a brilliant British actor, though, and he's brilliant in everything. But in the movie, the operative was very different. For one, he didn't travel as a two, which, according to River, the Blue Hand dudes always did. And the Blue Hand dudes were just a bit weird. They behaved almost like androids or something. They didn't behave like, normal policemen. And also, River was scared. So she seemed to have maybe come in touch with them before, or maybe it was just a psychic link to them. They knew that these guys were really, really not good. I would love to know a bit more about these guys that travel into with Hands of Blue and who they were exactly. Not individually, I don't mean, but what part of the secret police or whatever did they come from? Why have they got blue hands? And, a bit more of a background on two characters in that episode that were creepy as hell. But the main thing I want to know is just what happened next. This is a show that was cruelly taken away from us. Damn you, Fox! You just really annoy me. Space Above Beyond in this. Fox, god damn it. It was taken away from us really too soon. And obviously, yes, we've got a load of beta canon that allow us to sort of explore this story more, but you have to do a lot of that in your imagination. I really want this show to come back and to explain to us what happened next. You guys know I don't like a prequel. I don't particularly like a reboot. But when you've got a story as interesting as Firefly with characters that are as interesting, yeah, I want Tim Minear. I want Joss Whedon, maybe if he can get a job, to come back and tell us these stories. A continuation of one of the greatest sci-fi shows ever made, and the sci-fi show for me that was most cruelly taken away from us, needs a next chapter. And I desperately want to see it. But guys, get into the comments and tell me what you think. Are there more questions that you would love answered? And out of the ones I've raised, what is the one that you think is most important? What do we desperately need to see if this show does get a continuation? Get into the comments and tell me exactly what you think. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. It really helps us out and you'll never miss any of our new videos. Also, you can go to Patreon. There's a link in the description where I do videos just for there. You'll never see them on YouTube. For a small fee, you can get that, and I talk about background stuff on this. I give you some information I cannot talk about on YouTube, and I just tell you a bit about me, if you want to know. I don't know why you would, but some people seem to. Go check that out. As always, please stay safe, and I'll see you next time.
Our tachyon pulse has been unable to completely penetrate the anomaly.